The oceans begin to rise without warning. Entire coastlines vanish overnight. Navy fleets disappear beneath impossible whirlpools, and before the world can understand what's happening, a single broadcast hijacks every screen on the surface. The King of Atlantis stands in the dark, waters swirling behind him like a living storm. His voice is steady, cold, irrevocably decided. The surface has had its age. Now the oceans will reclaim what was stolen. This is the moment humanity realizes Aquaman hasn't come to negotiate. He has come to wage war. The war did not begin with a declaration. It began with an atrocity. Arthur Curry had always walked the fragile line between two worlds, Atlantis beneath him and the surface above. His entire life had been a struggle to prove that coexistence was possible. But all it took was one catastrophic night to shatter that belief forever. It started near the Mariana Trench, where Atlantean scouts detected unusual seismic readings. At first, they believed it was a natural disturbance, but the truth was much darker. A clandestine surface operation funded by multiple governments in secret had been testing experimental deep-sea mining drills, weapons disguised as research tools. Their goal was simple: gain access to rare mineral reserves supposedly hidden in the trench, resources that billions of desperate surface citizens would kill for. The drill ruptured a thermal vent and caused a collapse. Thousands of Atlanteans did entire outposts crush beneath rock and pressure. When Arthur arrived, too late to save them, the water was still clouded red with the bodies of his people. The deep was silent, except for the grief-stricken roar that tore from his throat, echoing into the abyss. In the aftermath, the surface governments denied involvement. They blamed rogue companies, miscommunication, accidents, every excuse except the truth. And Arthur watched as the world that had always feared Atlantis attempted to wash its hands clean, not just of guilt, but of responsibility. But then came the moment that broke him completely. When the Atlantean Council gathered to decide their response, they placed political strategy above their own dead. Some wanted negotiation, others wanted retaliation, and some simply wished to hide from the surface entirely. During the chaos, a survivor was found, an injured scout who had witnessed the drill activation. With his dying breath, he whispered the final detail Arthur needed to hear. "They knew, Your Majesty. They knew we were there." Arthur returned to the wreckage, floating alone in the cold darkness. The pressure of the deep felt like hands tightening around him. He thought about his father on the surface, about the home he once had, about the endless wars he had fought to protect people who'd never fully accepted him. And he realized the terrible truth. Peace was a myth, one he had carried alone. Mera found him drifting, hollow-eyed, silent. She tried to pull him back, to remind him of balance, of hope, of everything he once believed in. But her voice couldn't reach him. Not this time. Because Arthur had already decided, if the surface would never respect the ocean, then the ocean would take back everything. Within days, the oceans began shifting unnaturally. Tides rose higher than any recorded in history. Satellites detected colossal underwater constructs moving toward the coasts. Atlantean armies mobilized in absolute silence, and then Arthur stepped before the Atlantean throne, Nereus, the council, and every soldier kneeling before him. His voice boomed through the chamber. "You have feared the surface. You have begged for their mercy. I will not. Today, Atlantis stands united, not in defense, but in conquest." And just like that, Atlantis prepared for a war that had been centuries in the making. The first strike was swift and merciless. An entire aircraft carrier vanished under a flash flood that rose from beneath. Submarines surfaced, their hulls crushed inward by invisible pressure. Coastal cities awoke to tidal waves forming at their doorsteps. And then the transmission that changed everything, Aquaman, announcing that the age of the surface is over. Heroes scrambled. The Justice League fractured. Some wanted to stop Arthur by force. Others hesitated, knowing his pain, fearing the cost of conflict. And Superman refused to believe his friend had chosen this path willingly. But belief wasn't going to stop the rising oceans. Dozens of nations were already underwater. Millions were fleeing inland. The war had begun, and Aquaman was no longer the king caught between two worlds. He was the king determined to drown one. The world's first response was denial. Governments released shaky broadcasts insisting they were handling the maritime crisis, as if the entire ocean hadn't decided to move on its own. Military analysts spoke in broken sentences on news channels. unable to explain how fleets were sinking without any signs of combat, and citizens clung to the hope that this was just another natural disaster, something predictable, survivable, temporary. But then the sky over Metropolis darkened as an enormous column of water rose straight out of the Atlantic, twisting upward like a living serpent. It hovered there, impossible, defying gravity, forming a shimmering boundary wall miles wide, a border, a line in the sea. And inscribed across it in Atlantean glyphs were 3 words, translated by every global broadcast: "Turn back now." That was when the world accepted the truth. Superman arrived first. He stood before the swirling tower of water, wind ripping his cape, eyes searching for the friend he once trusted. But Arthur did not come. Instead, Mera emerged, riding the current like a queen carved from the storm itself. Her expression was unforgiving, sharp with a loyalty hardened by grief. "We warned the surface for generations," she said, her voice amplified by the roaring sea. "You poisoned our waters, you trespassed into our sacred depths, and now you kill us for what lies beneath. This is justice." Superman tried pleading. "Arthur doesn't want this. He's hurting. Let me talk to him." Mera's reply was cold enough to freeze the ocean solid. "You had your chance to protect him from your world. You failed." And with a single gesture from her hand, the ocean surged forward, not as an attack, but as a warning. A pulse of tidal energy slammed into Superman, pushing him back miles across the sky. He caught himself, shock flickering across his face. This wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a kingdom preparing to drown a planet. Meanwhile, across the world, Atlantis revealed weapons the surface never believed existed. Living bioarmors made of hardened coral, Leviathan-class siege beasts bred in the abyss, storm-forged tridents that could channel hydrothermal energy strong enough to slice battleships in half. They didn't fire missiles. They didn't need tanks. The ocean itself was their arsenal. The Justice League convened in emergency session. Tension crackled through the watchtower. Wonder Woman was furious. "This is not Arthur. This is grief, twisted into madness. If we do nothing, millions will die." Batman stared at the rising sea levels displayed across the holographic map. He's not acting blindly. His strikes are precise, coordinated. He's targeting infrastructure, not civilians. He doesn't want genocide. He wants surrender. Green Lantern slammed his fist onto the table. "He's a king. He's taken the gloves off. If you want me to wait around while the oceans swallow the eastern seaboard, forget it." Then the unexpected voice cut through the room. "It's my fault, Superman." Every member turned. "I should have seen how much pressure he was under," he said quietly, eyes fixed on the Atlantic. He tried to be part of a world that never truly accepted him. He tried harder than any of us. And now, this is the cost. Wonder Woman placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are not responsible for the choices he makes, but we must stop him." Batman exhaled slowly, the gears in his mind already shifting. "I know Arthur. He sees this as the only path left. He believes he's saving his people by destroying ours. But there's something we're missing, some deeper reason driving this escalation." And he was right. Far beneath the ocean, Arthur stood inside the heart of Atlantis, a chamber built of ancient stone, pulsing with energy from a device older than recorded history, the Abyssal Engine, a relic capable of manipulating ocean currents on a planetary scale. A relic the surface drilling had accidentally destabilized, triggering the cataclysm that killed his people. Arthur placed a hand on the engine. It vibrated with raw, unstoppable force. "The surface will never stop," Arthur whispered. "But I can." Nereus approached him cautiously. "Your Majesty, the war is already breaking them. Soon they will yield." Arthur's jaw tightened. Yield. They destroyed thousands of lives. And they call it a mistake. "If the surface wants a war over resources, we will give them a world without resources to fight for." Nereus hesitated. "What are you planning?" Arthur looked up at the swirling ocean above. A single shift in the engine's current lines. One correction, and the sea will rise another 100 meters. Permanently, Nereus paled. "That will drown entire continents." Arthur closed his eyes. So be it. Above the water, the world braced for disaster. Below it, a king prepared to rewrite the planet. And somewhere between them, one fragile hope still remained: if the Justice League could reach Arthur before he severed both worlds forever. Storms, unlike anything in recorded history, tore across the globe. Cities that had once seemed untouchable now stood on the edge of annihilation. Inland borders shifted overnight. Millions fled toward higher ground. The world wasn't ending, not yet, but it was changing into something unrecognizable. And deep in the watchtower, desperation tightened its grip around the Justice League. Batman stood in the dim war room, studying seismic readings and energy signatures surrounding the abyssal engine. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was low, grim, and certain. If Arthur activates a second current shift, the ocean rise won't stop. Not in days, not in years. Sever Superman clenched his fists. Then we don't let him. We can't simply fight him, Wonder Woman argued. He is a king with the loyalty of millions, and his grief, it has hardened into something immovable. But it is still grief. That means it can still be reached. Batman's eyes remained fixed on the map. If we tried talking and fail, we won't get a second chance. The minute we show ourselves in force, he will assume it's an assassination attempt. The debate fractured into silence as a hologram flickered too, life showing another city, being evacuated under the shadow of a rising wave. They were running out of time. Finally, Superman stepped forward. I'll go alone. Batman didn't turn. He'll kill you, maybe. But if there's anyone who can still reach him, it's me. Wonder Woman nodded reluctantly. Be careful, Kel. He vanished into the sky, leaving only the echo of wind behind. Under the ocean, Superman's arrival sent every creature scattering. The water darkened as a squadron of Atlantean elite soldiers surrounded him, weapons humming with biothermal energy. Superman held up both hands. I'm not here to fight. But they didn't move. Atlantis was beyond negotiation now. Then the water shifted and Arthur appeared, not as a friend, not as a League member, but as a king. His armor was darker than usual, forged from abyssal stone and laced with currents that spiraled around his muscles like living tidal forces. The Trident of Poseidon glowed with blue fire, illuminating the water around them. Superman met his gaze. Arthur, please turn back. Clark. Arthur's voice was deeper, heavier, amplified by the pressure of the deep. The surface has made its choice. Now I make mine. You're better than this. Better. I gave the surface my entire life. I fought their battles, bled for their cause. And what did they give me? A graveyard at the bottom of the world. Superman floated closer. I know you're hurt. I know what they did was unforgivable. But this isn't justice. Arthur surged forward, the water exploding behind him as he rammed his shoulder into Superman. The impact sent shockwaves through the deep, shaking ancient structures and scattering schools of fish. You don't get to speak of justice, Arthur hissed. Not when your world has been poisoning mine for centuries. Superman steadied himself, refusing to fight back. If you want to punish the ones responsible, I'll help you. But don't punish billions of people who had nothing to do with it. Arthur swung the trident, a blazing crescent of energy slicing through the water. Superman caught the weapon mid-swing, but it burned his palms with mythic force. You're defending them, Arthur roared. After everything, after they murdered my people. Superman looked directly into his eyes. I'm defending you. For a moment, just a moment, the king faltered. The ocean around them trembled as if sensing his hesitation. Then Mera arrived like a spear of blue lightning. Arthur! She cried. The engine is destabilizing again. If we delay, the surface could attack the trench directly. Superman's eyes widened. Attack? What attack? Arthur didn't look at him. His surface never stops. Clark, it will come. He turned away. Superman reached out, but this time Atlantean soldiers interlocked their shields, blocking him. Arthur drifted back into the darkness. Leave while there's still a world left to save, he said softly. Superman hovered there, unable to cross the wall of steel and coral now closing between them. The last thing he saw was Arthur drifting toward the abyssal engine, Mara at his side, their shadows merging with the colossal machinery that was beginning to pulse with apocalyptic power. Back in the watchtower, Superman's face was unreadable as he relayed what had happened. The silence afterward was suffocating. Batman finally spoke. We have one option left. Green Lantern exhaled. Please don't say it. We go to Atlantis, Batman said. All of us. Wonder Woman frowned. Arthur will see that as an invasion. It is, Batman replied, because the alternative is the end of the world. Superman closed his eyes, knowing it was true. The League prepared. The war was about to ignite in full force, because in the darkest depth of the ocean, Arthur Curry was about to make the final decision that would drown the world. The descent into the deep was unlike any mission that Justice League had ever undertaken. Even with advanced technology, magical protection, and raw superhuman power, the crushing blackness of the ocean pressed against them like a living thing. Atlantis had sealed itself behind colossal barriers of coral and shifting currents, defensive structures older than any kingdom on land. As they pushed closer, the water grew colder, darker, heavier. And then, out of the shadows, the Atlantean army emerged. Tens of thousands of soldiers, leviathan beasts with armored hides thicker than metal, bioengineered storm rays carrying living torpedoes in their wings. Wonder Woman whispered, This is a nation prepared to die." Batman's voice crackled over the comms. "No one attacks unless attacked first. We're here to reach Arthona to slaughter his people." But Atlantis had already made its decision. The first wave struck with ruthless precision. Harpoons streaked through the water, trailing hydrothermal energy. Explosive algae pods detonated around the League, shaking the seabed. A leviathan lunged at Green Lantern, its jaws wide enough to swallow a battleship. Superman intercepted it, slamming it backward with a single strike. The creature roared and spiraled into the darkness. The war had begun. Wonder Woman clashed with Atlantean generals whose armor glowed with ancient enchantments. Green Lantern constructed barriers as fast as they were shattered. Cyborg unleashed pulse waves that cut through entire formations, his systems pushing against the limits of their design. And Batman, protected by a pressure suit reinforced with Atlantean alloy plating, moved like a ghost through the chaos, planting EMP pearls, disarming sonic mines, neutralizing soldiers without killing them. Through the pandemonium, Superman's voice boomed across the battlefield. "We don't want to fight you." But desperation had turned Atlantis into a storm without mercy. Every soldier believed the surface had murdered their families. Every soldier believed Arthur's war was righteous. They would die before surrendering. And then, in the center of the battlefield, the sea split apart. Aquaman arrived, not as a soldier, not as a king, but as a force of nature. The ocean carried him forward like a living throne. The Trident of Poseidon shimmered with blue fire. Behind him rose the abyssal engine now, fully awakened its ancient gears, turning with the power to rewrite the world. Enough. Arthur's roar shook the water like thunder. The fighting froze. Atlanteans bowed. The League regrouped. The engine pulsed, sending tremors through the deep that climbed all the way to the surface. Superman swam forward, battered and bruised. "Arthur, please, stop this, for your father, for your mother, for the lives you swore to protect." Arthur's expression flickered just for a heartbeat, but the pain behind his eyes was a drowning weight dragging him deeper and deeper. "I gave my people peace," he said, voice trembling with fury, "and the surface shattered it. I will not let them do it again." Wonder Woman stepped beside Superman. "This isn't peace. This is vengeance, and it will consume you." Arthur pointed the trident at her. "Do not speak to me of vengeance. I buried children today, children who trusted me to protect them." The water vibrated. The engine roared. Batman eased forward, his voice steady. "Arthur, you're right about the surface. You're right about what they did. But you're condemning billions to suffer for the sins of the few. You'll become the very thing you hate." Arthur's jaw tightened. "You think I haven't tried everything else? Negotiations, treaties, cooperation. Every bridge I built, they burned. Every alliance I made, they exploited. Every time I chose peace, they answered with blood." He turned toward the engine. "One more correction in the current lines," he said, raising the trident, "and the oceans will rise. Permanently. A land will retreat, and Atlantis will inherit the earth." Superman surged forward. "Arthur, don't." But it was too late. The trident touched the core. The engine screamed. The ocean convulsed in agony. A shockwave ripped outward, slamming into the League, hurling them across the seabed. Entire armies were tossed aside. The water surged upward in a spiraling column of unstoppable force. But then Mera screamed, "Not at the League, not at the surface. At Arthur. If you do this, you destroy everything. Even us." Arthur froze. Mara's chest heaved, tears streaming into the water around her like dissolving pearls. "Do you think Atlantis survives this? You think our children survive this?" she cried. "The ocean will rise, but it will not stop. It will drown the world, and then the world will drown us." Arthur stared at her, stunned. "Mera, no. I calculated." "You calculated with grief, Arthur," she screamed. Not with reason, not with hope. The ocean fell silent. Arthur looked around him, really looked. At the soldiers risking their lives. At the League battered but trying to save him. At the earth trembling above. At the engine pulsing with a power that would not be controlled. And he finally understood. He wasn't about to save his people. He was about to destroy them. Arthur lowered the trident, and the engine's light began to dim. But the relic wasn't meant to be awakened. Its currents were already spiraling out of control. It wasn't stopping. It was accelerating. Arthur looked at Superman, terror dawning in his eyes. "Clark, help me shut it down." Superman nodded. "We do it together." The League rushed to the core, channeling strength, magic, technology, heat vision, everything they had. Arthur plunged the trident into the engine, redirecting its currents. Mera stabilized the flow. Wonder Woman anchored the chamber with divine chains. Green Lantern sealed pressure ruptures. Cyborg locked onto the feedback loop. Batman coordinated every move with surgical precision. The engine screamed one last time, and then it shattered. The resulting energy burst erupted upward, rocketing to the surface in a pillar of light. But instead of triggering the apocalyptic tidal rise, the wave collapsed in on itself, dissipating into harmless currents that rippled across the ocean like a sigh of relief. When the light faded, Arthur collapsed to his knees. The war was over. In the days that followed, the world slowly steadied itself. Coastlines remained damaged. Cities were ruined. Trust between land and sea was thinner than ever, but the apocalypse had been stopped. Billions were alive because Arthur Curry chose mercy over vengeance, responsibility over rage. He abdicated the throne for a time, stepping away from Atlantis to rebuild himself, while Mera assumed leadership. She opened the first true peace summit between humans and Atlanteans, one built not on treaties or threats, but on truth. As for Arthur, he walked the shores of Amnesty Bay, unsure if he belonged to the ocean or the surface. Superman found him one morning, staring at the waves. "You saved them," Clark said softly. Arthur shook his head. "No, I almost destroyed them." Superman placed a hand on his shoulder. "But you chose differently. And that choice saved all of us." Arthur looked at the horizon. "I don't know who I am anymore." Clark smiled gently. "You're Arthur Curry, and that has always been enough." For the first time in a long while, Arthur believed it. The world had nearly drowned, but from that broken tide rose something stronger than fear, stronger than war, stronger even than a king hope. And sometimes, hope is enough to change the current of an entire world.